Welcome into tipsforgamers.com, home of pro gamers dedicated to making the game work for you. Our motto is simple: don't just play the game, own the game. And in this video, we will be breaking down how to use the practice squad to get you extremely cheap backup players that will save you millions to use on elite first stringers. And if you haven't seen our practice squad secret video, you need to check it out after this video is over. It will turn you into a god in franchise mode. That is a promise. And if you want to look like a saucy beast, make sure to get merched up because, as you all know, it's nothing personal, baby. It's just business. Also, head to our website after this video as well to join our Madden group for more Madden content. And you'll always be able to come and shoot questions off of us. I'll be there. You'll see my profile Daughtery Crib. You'll see Jay Boney, and you guys could be able to ask us Madden questions on the site. Now, Practice Squad is a great tool to use to save a lot of money. And although Practice Squad players are usually less talented in real life, in Madden, they do not have to be. When you get into week 4 of the preseason, you need to be scouting and prepping for the next year. The best rebuilders are the ones who can prep for the future while also managing the present. Always be looking to improve your team with aggressive intent. No one ends their career excited about being second best, and we sure in the hell won't let our followers get passed up by anybody. Trust your training, trust yourself, and we promise you will succeed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be searching for good practice squad prospects. They can be players you just drafted that are signed to low signing bonus contracts, which is very important. Players you traded for, or players you find on the free agency. Don't always choose the best on the board. Choose the best backups that you can. I want to make sure I set my team up for success by getting 10 good backups for 10 different positions. So when week 4 hits of the preseason, I will be heading to the free agency and checking out practice squad eligible players. And in doing this, I will be looking to add great practice squad players that will save me money over time. And some of the positions you will have to look at first will be the positions that cost the most amount of money, such as quarterback. Now, Dwayne Haskins is a perfect candidate. Now, what makes a player a perfect candidate for a backup role with this practice squad method? Well, age has something to do with it. The overall also has something to do with it because you want to give yourself the ability to not only have good backup players, but to have potential trade value as well. Because in doing this method, you will never incur cap penalty for trading any of these players away. Never will you ever incur cap penalty. So a player like Dwayne Haskins is the perfect player to do this with because not only does he have trade value, but even if we decide to not trade him away, he is a perfect backup to have due to his youth, his overall attributes that he has. We cannot complain with having him as a backup. So I would sign him to practice squad, and he is our first player that we are bringing on. So another position we will definitely be looking at is halfback. Having a third string backup halfback that is extremely cheap is very valuable because these guys are annoyingly expensive, and obviously they're not expensive because it's pretty cheap. However, paying a guy $1 million that we're never ever going to use except for maybe 2 games is a waste of money. So you want to do it as intelligently as you can, and there's ways to do that. You could go after the guy who is young with a decent overall like Darius here. However, 65 overall is the range cutoff. If you can find a rookie or a guy who's 21 years old, it is a perfect guy to do this with because by the time he's even 23, he could be a 70 overall. His youth, along with his overall, and if you can get a guy with good development, that would be great. However, most of them are going to be normal overall. Now, let's say that you don't want one of these guys and you want to even take it a step further. You need a halfback, but you want a better third string halfback. A position you can do and you could supplement with halfback would be wide receiver. Wide receivers are the best on offense. They're the most athletic. They could play almost every position from tight end to halfback. They're better than most halfbacks are at halfback. They're better than most tight ends are at tight ends. So utilize the wide receiver position as much as you can. One way to do that is by looking at either deep threat or slot wide receivers. Slots or deep threats tend to be better halfbacks. We have found more significance in actual slot. However, they're really close, so I wouldn't just stick with one or the other. Just look for the best guy for the job. You're looking at COD, you're looking at carrying, you're looking at overall speed, you're looking at ball carry vision. You're adding all the things up that make them a good halfback. So a guy I will go after just due to his youth will be DJ Dallas. Unfortunately, his stamina is low, which is painful. However, I'd rather have his stamina low than his injury, so make sure you are paying attention to the injury and stamina along with the speed. Now, his speed is not great. However, this is a guy that I'm either going to trade away after the first year, or I'll keep him for the second year as well, then try to sign him for extremely cheap, or do this same process again. Let's bring him onto the team with the practice squad signing, baby. Now, when it comes to wide receivers, getting at least 2 could be profitable, but once again, remember, if you have 10, there's 11 guys playing on the field. You want to get as many guys possible so that you have almost 10 backups for 10 different positions, and that way you are covering yourself in multiple different facets. So a guy like this is perfect. Steven Sims. Now, why is Steven Sims perfect? Well, he's one of the best guys you could get based upon one simple thing. His attributes connect very well with his traits. Those two go hand in hand. One thing with wide receivers that is incredibly annoying is one of their traits can be drops passes. Why would I want a backup who's already bad but now also drops passes? Dropping passes is something you need to take in consideration because it can really harm you over time, especially in simulation or even in user. Trey Quinn is also another guy who is perfect to pick up in this scenario. He's got decent COD, he could play a little bit of halfback, his stamina sucks, however, he has an 85 catching and he's still incredibly young. But the guy we are going to be picking up is definitely Steven Sims. This guy has tons and tons of traits that I absolutely love. The high motor, keeps his feet in bounds, fights for yards, run after catch, possession catch, aggressive catch. It's honestly overpowering, especially to have him as cheaply as we are going to get him. Now on the tight ends, it's kind of frustrating because a lot of the tight ends drop passes. They're usually incredibly slow. Their stamina and injury are okay at times, and they're all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out on a limb and pick up Deon Cain. His traits are pretty fantastic. He's got decent speed and I mean decent as in he's fast as hell. Okay, for a tight end. He's obviously a really small tight end, but he'd be pure receiving tight end. Now, you don't have to do this. You can do a regular tight end if you want, and you want it to be, you feel it's more realistic in a way or whatever. You can pick up whoever you want. However, his catching in traffic is an 80. I see this guy being a decent tight end. He'll bump up in overall. We could perhaps trade him away, or we could keep him as a solid backup for the next 2 years. So let's bring him on to the practice squad. Welcome in, Cain. Now, when choosing your practice squad players, don't just choose regular backups. Choose guys who are going to save you money. For example, I would love to be able to pick up a fullback and get a fullback incredibly cheap by either going after a tight end who is a possession style tight end, moving him over to a fullback and utilizing tight end at fullback. However, it really is not financially intelligent to do because of the fact that a fullback by himself already is extremely cheap. Also, be thinking about trade value as well. These guys as a fullback, it's not hard to trade for them. It's easy to trade them away. It's not hard to trade for them. You could get the best fullback in the game extremely easy. And also be thinking about trade value as well. How hard is it to trade for these positions? Well, when it comes to fullback, it's incredibly easy to get the best fullback in the game for nothing more than a halfback on the free agency. So it's also incredibly cheap to be able to sign a fullback. So a fullback is going to be a position that I will use last. However, if you did want to do this for a fullback, you would look to go to the tight end position and pick up a possession style archetype tight end and convert him to fullback. If you can find one with speed, that'd be great. Most possession guys are a little bit slower. However, they make really good fullbacks for the most part. So we'll be adding him up. He has the player archetype that we like, which is an agile player archetype that fits a lot of the really good schemes that will make you successful. Don't just choose guys just because of their overall. Choose guys with the overall combination of age and their archetype as well. I like this archetype. I like this player. A 61 overall would basically be my cutoff. If it is a 61 overall or below, I'm not going to pick up that lineman. And the reason I'm not going to pick up that lineman is just because of the fact that a 61 overall just makes it into an uncomfortable overall to get him up. In 2 years' time, Brandon Knight could be, either in 1 year time, he could be 24 years old, and I could get him up to a 65 to a 66 overall potentially. And that actually puts him in a decent spot to be successful, either in the trade game or as a backup for us for the next 2 years. So I'll sign him up. Welcome to the team, Brandon. I also will be trying to think smarter, not harder, when it comes to our D-backs. Cornerbacks are the biggest and most prized possessions on defense. They are the wide receivers of defense, and they can be utilized in so many different categories. Majority of the time, you're going to be more successful with a cornerback at either free safety or strong safety than you will a standard free safety or strong safety. So what I will be doing is I will be looking to add guys that fit more into that hybrid. Believe it or not, these guys will still be able to get quite a few tackles, even playing all Madden, whether it's simulation or user play. One of the traits to look out for is the undisciplined in the penalty tendency. It is an unnecessary trait to have in the sense that why pick one of these guys up and put them on the field if they are already not good and they're going to cost you yardage because they're holding and they're doing things like that. It's not going to make the player better because he held. The guys who are good are the guys who can hold without people watching. Javelin Guidry would be a perfect candidate. And the reason he's a perfect candidate is because, well, he's faster than all get out with that 96 speed. He's got a high motor, balanced penalty tendency, great injury and stamina, and I could use him at a safety and he'll end up being one of the best safeties that you can get. He actually could end up being a starter on your team over time, and I'm not kidding you even the slightest. He's a rookie. He's 22 years old. He's 5'9", which is not super tall. He's got a normal dev. However, he is perfectly suited for this method. So we will be bringing him on. Mr. Guidry, welcome to the team, bud. Another guy we'll be picking up is Tay Hayes. Tay Hayes has the high motor, which I like to see. His injury and stamina are all right. Now, a guy like this, since he's a 65 overall, I would put him as a safety more than likely, unless I can't find actual good cornerbacks to have at cornerbacks, then that would be the only reason he would stay there. If I can't find other good backup cornerbacks that if they start getting too low in overall, then obviously I would keep Tay Hayes, or I'd keep the other guy signed Guidry, and I'd keep them at cornerback. And then what I would do is choose guys that are a little bit lower overall than this, but you have to be careful of going too low. You really do, because it's just not going to pan out. You don't need a cornerback or a backup who's just not very good. So in finding the best backup cornerback, I have found the guy that I really, really enjoy, and that is Holton Hill. He's 6'2", which makes him incredibly tall for a cornerback. Regardless of him being a 2-year pro, he's 23 years old, so he's still incredibly young. Looking at his traits, he's got a high motor, he's balanced penalty tendency, His injury and stamina are well within the range of being successful. His man coverage isn't terrible, and his zone coverage isn't the worst I've ever seen. His press is okay, and he fits as an archetype as a slot. He's not too far off of the man-to-man or the zone, so what he will be is a hybrid if I ever decide to put him at the safety position, whether that is free safety or strong safety. Holton Hill, welcome to the team, bud. And also, do not overlook outside linebackers. Outside linebackers are incredibly important to get right, because you can use outside linebackers in the end position and they can do fantastic. Finding a guy like Polite is perfect because he's got decent injury. His stamina is not great, however, it's not terrible. His speed's an 81, acceleration's an 86. But what I see out of this guy, aside from his personality being intense, which means nothing in Madden terms, he has a lot of great traits. His swim move, spin move, strip ball, high motor, bounce penalty tendency. He has a lot to offer. His finesse moves are up, block shedding is up decent, but I would definitely think about either putting this guy in an end position or having him stick at the outside linebacker position. This guy is a perfect guy to look for. 66 overall is a perfect range to just float around, so be finding these guys as much as you can, especially if you find a power rusher. They end up being fantastic on the defensive line in the end position. So we'll be bringing on Polite, and I'm happy as hell to have him on the team. D tackles are also another position that you guys should look out for. If you guys have power rushing style schemes, look for power rushing D tackles that have decent speed. The really slow guys are not the guys you're going to want to go after, because they're the guys who are not going to be able to sack the quarterback. You want these guys to be able to sack the quarterback and also be able to cover the flats if they need to chase down a halfback. 75 speed is not great. However, for a guy this big, 290 pounds, 6'5", it's decently impressive. Yes, he's a 63 overall. He's not particularly amazing. However, if I'm looking for a backup and I need to put one at an end position, I would be looking for a guy like this who fits the power rushing scheme. If I have power rushing schemes for him to fit, I'd be looking at a guy like this through and through to put on to be able to work him into that backup role. So we'll be bringing on Robert Windsor. Welcome on, Robert. How you doing, bud? Now for D tackle, I would be bringing on Miles Brown. He's extremely young, and that's basically the reason I would bring him on. However, at this point in time, unfortunately, I've got all 10 of my practice squad players. So to go over all the guys that I picked up Steven Sims, Hill. I'm putting these guys, some of these cornerbacks, I'm putting at safety position. So I will be covering basically 10 positions that these guys will be my backups, and they will be much cheaper than standard backups will be, and we'll show you this at the end of the year. So when your season ends, whenever your season ends, because everyone's season ends at different times, especially if you suck and you lose and don't even go to the playoffs. What did our team even do? You bastard. Oh, they went 8-8. Oh, so fits. Okay, so what happens is your players get signed to this deal. This beautiful deal, which we will go into. Now, make sure throughout the year when guys get injured that you are signing guys from the free agency and you're not taking them away from your practice squad. That defeats the purpose of what you're doing here. Because what you're going to be getting is you're going to be getting guys for basically half the cost. Okay, Dwayne Haskins, he wanted basically $1.5 million for 1 year, right around there. We're paying him half. We're paying him $1.48 million for 2 years. And guess what? He's locked into no bonus. So at any point in time, I could trade him away. In fact, we're going to show you some of these guys' trade values as well. But we have Dwayne Haskins. We have Dallas here signed to this 2-year deal at $610,000. We're paying him $290,000 this year, $320,000 the next year. This is actually cheaper than the 7-year deal of $3.85 million, because that deal averages $550,000 a year. This isn't even coming close to that. Another guy as well, looking at $2.01 million is Sims, and we're not even barely cracking $1 million even in his second year, which is incredibly cheap. Kane, who was a wide receiver who we converted over jumped up to a 70 overall, and we're paying him $1.74 million, which is incredibly cheap. Incredibly cheap if you even look at this guy here at $2.95 million, which is outrageously expensive. And we have Windsor, who we moved over from D tackle to left end, and the beautiful part about him is he was a 62 or 63 overall. Now he's a 65. And then we'll get into upgrades here in just a moment. The other guy we picked up is Polite. Now Polite even has a chance to start on this team, and look at what we're paying him. $320,000, $350,000. Imagine how much money you're saving if you do this with almost all of your backups. You have 10 backups that you can sign with this method. That leaves only one backup on each side of offense and defense that you will actually have to pay. This will save you millions and millions of dollars over time. Hill is also signed to an incredibly cheap deal, $680,000, $720,000. He is incredibly cheap. In fact, he's cheaper than this guy, and he's better than this guy. The other two guys we moved over is Godry. We moved him over. We're paying him $650,000 and $690,000. So if you don't want to do the 7-year deal, $3.85 million, because you feel it's too cheesy or whatever the case, this is another great method to do because you're paying him slightly above that deal, but not much more. And we also added Hayes over here as well. Now, he wouldn't be a great backup necessarily for us because we already have backups. However, in this case scenario, if I wanted to keep him over Love, what I could do is trade Love away and save money on that over time, even jump up, get a first-round pick for Love, and I know I'm covered because I have a fairly decent backup. So Kane here has 2 upgrade points, and this is what's beautiful about these practice squad guys is they average 2 upgrade points at the end of the year. So not only we got this guy for a 2-year deal, we have him locked into that 2-year deal. At the end of this, we upgraded him twice, which makes him better, and yet he's still less expensive. Polite has 2 upgrade points as well. I'm going to upgrade him and get him up to a 68 overall, which makes him a phenomenal backup to have, especially at his age. Steven Sims gets an upgrade, bumps him up to a 73. And this guy's beautiful because he can do both slot and deep threat, like most of these guys can, and his route running isn't even that far behind, nor is his physical. Holton Hill gets up on an upgrade as well, and this guy could actually play slot for us, and we can work him into the slot if we really wanted to. It's up to you. Same with Guidry as well. He jumps up to a 68 overall, which makes him a very nice backup to have, especially for the price at which we're getting him. Dwayne Haskins even gets an upgrade as well. We'll jump him up. On this one, though, if I could go back really quick, I kind of jumped into that too quickly, but I would have upgraded what he's best at if you're trading him away. If you're not trading him away, then stick with what's going to be your archetype, right? And that would be strong arm for me, and so that's why I did that. I'm not necessarily planning to trade him away. If you are planning to trading him away or any of these players, make sure you are upgrading what they are best at. You're not trying to fit them into your team schemes. Even Tay Hayes here, we're going to upgrade his hybrid because, like we said, most of these guys are hybrid, and that even puts him to a 64, which is not terribly bad for a guy who's 24 years old and gets paid nothing. So when you get into the free agency week 1 of the offseason is when you're able to trade for players. Now, like we have told you many different times, this is the most important time to trade. So you can use this best method as well if you've already signed good backups doing different methods that we've showed you, like the 7-year deal for $3.85 million. This is a way to add to your trade value into tremendous amounts as well, because we'll scroll down and you're going to see people interested. I don't know if they'll be interested in Dallas. Haskins is pushing it. However, look at this. This is absolutely beautiful. If I wanted to do something stupid, I could do something stupid. Exactly what I'm showing you here. Dwayne Haskins has value, and so do these other guys. You just have to find out who is willing to pay for it. In fact, I will do something so unorthodox. I'll send Dwayne Haskins back to the Washington football team. But this time, I'll make them pay for it by giving me Matthew. And I threw in Dallas just because. And I'll use other guys as well, like Hill, Sims, Kane, and you could get tremendous value out of all these guys. Kane, he doesn't show tremendous value for the most part, but you're seeing a lot of yellows and greens on these guys when normally you shouldn't. So imagine what you can do if you utilize this every single year, whether it's getting practice squad players as your backups or using these guys to trade away for huge value. It's time to not just play the game, but to own the game.